So in today's video we are doing chili and it's vegan and gluten-free. Bonus. So come on, let's get started. So I start with a plant-based mince, which they all come pre-packaged like this. You can do the dehydrated ones and rehydrate them yourself, like out of soya and things like that, but it generally, I don't know, I don't really like the taste of them. I can't really get a decent flavor out of them. So this is my basis that I start with, and I use a whole bag of this. So this is 454 grams, so that's about a pound of plant-based mince that we're starting with. So I use olive oil, depending. I mean, I've been really liking this one at the moment. But I tend to get the wok. I do a lot of my cooking on the wok as well, as you've probably noticed by now. And I'd like to get the oil pretty hot before I add this, because this is frozen. And the idea is that I really want to get it browned off as soon as possible. So while it's kind of defrosting in the wok and cooking through, it's going to brown as well. Now at this point, the mince is cooking nicely. It hasn't quite browned off yet. And what I like to do at this point is add a little bit more fat. So I add about this much butter. It's not a measure. I've just literally cut a slice of butter. So you can see about how much I've got there. It probably looks like a lot. It's not a lot. The problem that you have with plant-based, it's what I call fake meat, like this type of product, is it doesn't have any fat in it. And when you eat animals, you have the animal fat that contributes to cooking the meat itself, and that also is what adds flavor to it. So when you're cooking plant-based products like this, it doesn't have any fat in it. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. So I've added the oil, but I'm also adding, now that it's kind of thawed and it's starting to brown, I'll add a little bit of butter to it. And this is a plant-based butter. This is a butter that I use. I really like this stuff. It's one of the best products on the market that I found for butter replacement. And it works really well in these dishes, just to add that little bit of fat to soak into the mince. So you have that really nice quality. It keeps it soft, it keeps it supple. It doesn't get too dried out. It doesn't soak up all of your mix when you start adding your ingredients and stuff. It'll soak it up the way it's supposed to, like cooking an animal-based meal. The technique is very similar, but with this you just don't have any fat, so you need some kind of replacement. So some of you might be saying, because this is plastic, I'm not being very green about it, and it's a fair criticism. I can't really get this kind of product without buying it in a plastic bag like this, but they can be recycled. So my local grocery store will let you take stuff like this back and recycle it. So I can't recycle this in my home trash that I put out every week. So all this kind of cellophane-y stuff that I'm still struggling to replace at the moment, I save it all up, and then I take it into my local grocery store and they'll recycle it for me. Which is, it's the lesser of so many evils. I know it's not an ideal, but that's what I do with all this kind of plastic, where I used to have to throw it out. So these are the main ingredients that I'll be adding to the chili today. Ground cumin, oregano, or oregano for my English friends, black ground pepper, salt. So this is sea salt. I prefer Himalayan pink salt, but we're on the sea salt at the moment. And smoked paprika. Now this is sweet paprika. You can get it hot as well. This is really outstanding smoked paprika, and this is what really sets your chili apart. This is kind of one of my main ingredients for getting the chili to taste the way I want to. In terms of heat, I kind of leave that up to you guys. You can add all the chili and stuff that you want. I use cayenne pepper for this particular dish, but I don't make it too hot and spicy. I like it hot and spicy, but no one else in the house likes it hot and spicy, so I go a little bit mild on it. But yeah, these are my main ingredients. So as you can see, the fat is melted into the mix quite nicely now, and it's starting to brown off a little bit. So I'm going to add these ingredients now. I do it in two stages. So the first stage I add them is to cook them in with the mince before I add any tomato sauce. So I'm going to do that now. My first measure is going to be a teaspoon or 5 ml, and that's going to be the ground cumin. I'm going to add that to the mix first. And I'm going to add the same amount of smoked paprika as well. Now I'm a little bit generous. I do heaped portions most of the time. I don't really like cut them off at a level measure. I'm kind of over generous. I like my flavors robust. I'm going to add the same amount of oregano now. I'm just going to stir that in now. So the next ingredient I'm going to add is salt, and that's going to be the same thing. That's going to be 5 ml or a teaspoon. And then I'm going to add some black pepper. But really what I'm going to do is I'm just shaking that in. It probably amounts to about half a teaspoon. Probably should measure the black pepper, but I don't. You know, I just say add your black pepper to taste. Now you can really smell that seasoning coming out. It's cooking really nicely. And when I was saying earlier about the fat is going to mix with all those herbs and spices. Sorry, yeah, those herbs and spices now. And they're going to cook in that fat. And it's going to combine really nicely with the mince. So at this point I'm going to add some tomato puree. I'm only going to add about 5 ml to that. Again, you know, make it heaped. It doesn't have to be a perfect 5 ml measure. And that's going to help thicken it up and add a little bit more richness. So just stir that in now, and you can see it's a nice rich red tomato color. Great. So our next ingredient is sun-dried tomato paste. This is the reason why I don't put a lot of tomato puree in, because I put about half a jar of this into my chili to really bring that flavor together. So the combination of sun-dried tomato paste and the smoked paprika really brings that robust flavor out and gives you a really nice, unique taste. So you can see that's about half. Now this jar, the measure on this jar is 190 grams, and I've just added about half of that. Now I'm going to stir it in, and I'm going to taste it again after adding this, because I'm after a really distinct flavor now before I start adding my spices to it. So I start with half a jar. Sometimes I'll add a little bit more, but roughly half a jar should do. So I'm going to try a little bit of this now after I've added the sun-dried tomato. Pretty damn nice. And what you'll find is at this stage, just adding that sun-dried tomato paste is going to make a massive difference. You'll really taste it now. It's just brought the flavor back up again. So once you get to this point, after adding your sun-dried tomato paste, I won't add any more to that. That's perfect, that half a jar. I'll go back now and I'll add another 5 ml of the ground pepper, a ground black pepper, ground cumin, my oregano, salt, and smoked paprika. So I'm going to add 5 ml or a teaspoon of all of those. So I've just added all those ingredients, stirring that in. Now you can see I've got this on a, you know, it's not a high heat, it's probably about a medium heat, but it's cooking pretty hard now. It's gotten really hot all the way through. It's cooking nicely. So I'm just going to turn that down just to get it to stop cooking quite so hard. I just want it on a simmer really. So all that bubbling, we want that to stop now. You can see it's calming down. And that's just on a really low simmer. Now you notice I'm adding these red kidneys now at the end of the dish. I don't really want them to cook. This is 400 gram can of, it's a standard can of kidney beans. Pinto beans is nice, and black beans you can add to this as well. Again, I'm just going for basic chili, but you know, spice it up, put your own ingredients in it, whatever you like. Now you have to remember, every time you add an ingredient, it's just going to change the flavor a little bit. That's kind of ready as it stands now. So all I'm going to do is cook off some rice, and we're going to serve it up. And here's the finished product. Chili over rice with a bit of side salad. And just, again, keeping in mind, you can dress this up. This is a basic chili. So it's a starter chili for anything you might want to use it for. Using it for nachos, or using it in tacos or something like that, any other kind of Mexican dishes. it's a great base that you can then use it for other things. So let me know in the comments below what you think. Hope you enjoy it, and see you in the next vid.